appeared to Abraham.
Sorry.
Go ahead again, Bryce.
The Lord appeared to Abraham near the great trees of Mamre, where he was sitting at the entrance of his tent in the heat of the day. Abraham looked up and saw the three men standing nearby. When he saw them, he hurried from, from the entrance of his tent to meet them and bowed low to the ground. He said, "If I have found favor in your eyes, my lord, do not pass your servants by. Let a little water be brought, and then you may all wash your feet and the rest under this tree. Let me get you something to eat so you can be refreshed and then go on your way. Now that you have come to your servant." "Very well," they answered. "Do as you say." So Abraham hurried into the tent to Sarah. "Quick," he said. "Go quick," he said. "Get three shefs of four of flour and yeast, and it will it and bake some bread." Then he ran out of the herd and selected a choice of tender calf and gave it to the servant who hurried to prepare it. He then brought some curds and milk and the calf that he had been prepared and set them before them. While he while there while they are stu- while there they ate, he stood near them under the tree. "Where is your wife Sarah?" they asked. "Here in the tent," he said. Then the Lord said, I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah your wife will have a son."
Is that it?
Yep, that's it. Oh, I'm supposed to read up to 11. Sorry.
11.
Abraham and Sarah were already old and well advanced in years,
Hey, you missed
and
something. Wait
Sarah
a minute. You
was
missed
past the
something.
age of childbearing.
Did you miss something?
Nope.
Come on. He didn't miss anything, did he?
Yeah, yeah.
I
Now
thought you
Sarah
did.
was listening at the entrance of the tent, which was behind him.
Right. That's okay. All right.
Oh, that's what my version says.
Yes, I agree. Because
Okay.
it's only that you missed something. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, George, verse 12.
So Sarah laughed to herself and said, "Now that I am so withered, and my husband is so old, am I to still have sexual pleasure?" But the Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh and say, 'Shall I really bear a child, old as I am?' Is anything too marvelous for the Lord to do? At the appointed time, about this time next year, I will return to you, and Sarah will have a son." Because she was afraid, Sarah dissembled, saying, "I didn't laugh." But he said, "Yes, you did." The men set out from there and looked down toward Sodom. Abraham was walking with them to see them on their way. The Lord reflected, "Shall I hide from Abraham what I am about to do, now that he is to become a great and populous nation, and all the nations of the earth are to find blessing in him? Indeed, I have singled him out, that he may direct his sons and his posterity to keep the way of the Lord by doing what is right and just, so that the Lord may carry into effect for Abraham the promises he made about him." Then the Lord said, "The outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great, and their sin so grave, that I must go down and see whether or not their actions fully correspond to the cry against them that comes to me. I mean to find out." While the two men walked on further toward Sodom, the Lord remained standing before Abraham.
Thank you. Go ahead, Beth.
Then Abraham approached him and said, Will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? What if there are 50 righteous people in the city? Will you really sweep it away and not I'm sorry, hold on a second. I gotta clean my glasses. Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's all right. That's okay.
Will you really sweep it away and not spare the place for the sake of 50 righteous people in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to kill the righteous with the wicked, treating the righteous and the wicked alike. Far be it from you. Will not the judge of all the earth do right? The Lord said, If I find 50 righteous people in the city of Sodom, I will spare the whole place for their sake. Then Abraham spoke up again. Now that I have been so bold as to speak to the Lord, though I am nothing but dust and ashes, what if the number of the righteous is 5 less than 50? Will you destroy the whole city because of 5 people? If I find 45 there, he said, I will not destroy it. Once again he spoke to him. What if only 40 are found there? He said, For the sake of 40, I will not do it. Then he said, May the Lord not be angry, but let me speak. What if only 30 can be found there? He answered, I will not do it if I find 30 there. Abraham said, Now that I have been so bold as to speak to the Lord, what if only 20 can be found there? He said, For the sake of 20, I will not destroy it. Then he said, May the Lord not be angry, but let me speak just once more. What if only 10 can be found there? He said, For the sake of 10, I will not destroy it. When the Lord had finished speaking with Abraham, he left, and Abraham returned home.
Thank you. All right. Thank you all. Now, when you look at it, what you're seeing happening here at the beginning of chapter 18 is something where that we will call what we will call a theophany, where um, um, Abraham is having an appearance with God. God has appeared to him. Now it talks about 3 men. Um,
I don't even know
um,
who the 3 men are, to tell you the truth.
well, yeah, but it talks about having about 3 men, and there have been quite a lot of discussion on who these 3 men are. I mean, some people think that there were 3 angels. Another set think that it is God appearing in the Trinity as the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, or the Creator, the Redeemer, and the Sanctifier. Um, um, and but what it does appear to be like is, or what the general consensus seemed or appeared to be, we had quite a lot of quite a discussion on this today.
Why would
Is
Sarah
that
laugh, however? Why does Sarah
it
laugh at
was,
the Lord to tell
hold
her
on a
that
minute, Bryce.
she's
Hold
too
on a
old to
minute,
have a
Bryce.
son?
All right, hold on a minute, Bryce. That it was probably God and 2 angels with him. But it is believed that one was the Father, and the others might have been angels, because you will find when you get down to verse 22 of the chapter, you will see that there are 2 that go on to Sodom, whereas God, the Lord, stays with Abraham and continue the conversation that they were having. You would also see that this is a conversation, and it seems quite personal, between God and Abraham. There's just the few verses, the couple of verses or a verse or whatever it is, where God, well, actually only one line, where God speaks directly to Sarah and told her, I told her, more or less, you lied. Um, uh, when she um, laughed in her heart and then said she didn't. And obviously, although it tells you that she did it, you would not have think that anyone will realize it because it doesn't appear that she did it openly, but she did it internally. Since it is God and He knows all the secrets of our hearts, He knew that she had done it. And I guess she didn't realize how powerful God is to know that you did these things, that He knows. Yes, Susan. I mean,
It's not new. Would God be eating food? I mean, because they ate,
you see, yes, but you see, the thing is about it is that it mentions about them. It mentions that the food was prepared, and it mentions that they ate, but it doesn't mention that all three of them ate. It could have been just two of them ate. It just tells you while they ate, he stood under a tree. Um, but
Okay.
but the thing is about it is the fact is remain too is that they talk about, you will see in this passage that they're referred to in the singular and the plural, that and you would also realize that the word Lord in some places are lowercase l, in others is uppercase L, which means it was God that they're referring to. Um, um, and that is something that we see coming out here. But even before we get there, let's hold on a second before we even get
Okay.
there. We need to realize that where Abraham is still in a place called Mamre, which is like north of. And I have to get you all some. I have to get you all some handouts because I give handouts to the morning class and thing, but I'll send them by email for you all of some maps, and you will see where Sodom and Gomorrah is likely to be. It is still questionable exactly where they were. After all, they were destroyed completely. So where these places exist is still hazy because they no longer exist anymore. But also too, where Mamre, where Abraham was in relation to Sodom and Gomorrah. It is believed that Sodom and Gomorrah was southwest of where Moses was, Mamre. But um, and that is where he is, although, and we know that that's where he set up tent back out in Genesis chapter 13. And now we're seeing that he is still in that area, and it's near to Hebron, which is just south of Mamre. Um, the other thing that we need to recognize is that um, this is still the same place he lived when I think it was in Genesis chapter 14, where he went to rescue Lot from being captured. And he even wanted Lot to come back up to that end, up to there, but Lot did not want to go. Lot wanted to remain where he was. So Mamre is seems to be quite a place where Abraham is very much identified because he was there for some time. Um, and then you find that when you read verse 2, he looked up and he saw these three men standing nearby. And when he saw them, he hurried from the entrance to his tent to meet them and bow low to the Lord. And as I was saying earlier, it does appear that two of the men might have been angels. But you also have to remember, coming back to your question, Susan, that even although, as I said to the others this morning, you watch these, you ever saw the movie Touched by an Angel, or you got some of these other
You mean the
movies
TV
where
show? touched by an angel.
you have angels depicted in movies, and but yet they could still eat and drink and all of that kind of stuff, and it will appear that although these persons were angels, that they were able still to take on human form, for lack of a better phraseology. They were able to still take on human form. And therefore, you see them taking on human form. Going back to your question, though, Susan, whether or not God ate with them, that is a question mark, because the only we know that God took on human form in Jesus when he came at the first Christmas. So it isn't to say that God cannot eat and drink, because he did it through Jesus, but it is whether or not he would have done it here in this setting. That could be a little bit uncertain as to whether or not it was done. But what is very interesting in these first few verses of chapter 18, which will be the same in chapter 19, is that whole notion of hospitality. The hospitality was very, very, very important in the what they used to call the Near Eastern world, that kind of Middle Eastern in setting, where hospitality was extremely, extremely, extremely great. And you will see Abraham is very much prompt on it to make sure that these guys have the best welcome there is. So you see these three men standing nearby, and he saw them, and he hurried from the entrance of his tent to meet them and bow low to the ground as a symbol of great respect for them. And then he said, "If I have found favor in your eyes, my Lord, do not pass your servant by. Let a little water be brought, and then you may all wash your feet and rest under this tree. Let me get you something to eat so you can be refreshed, and then go on your way, now that you have come to your servant." And they said, "Very well," they answered, "do as you say." So you see here that that hospitality is extremely important in this setting, and it will be the same in Lot. Although he's in Sodom and Gomorrah, it is still that same kind of atmosphere where hospitality plays an important role. And therefore, then you will see that he goes into the tent. He tells Sarah, "Quick, get 3 sheets of fine flour and knead it and bake some bread." And he ran out to the herd and selected a choice, a tender calf, and gave it to the servant, who hurried to prepare it. And then he brought some curds and milk, and the calf had been prepared, and he set before them. And while they ate, he stood near them under a tree. And so you see in those first 7 verses, it sets the tone of this whole notion of hospitality that was very important in that context. You were going to say something, Marilyn?
Yeah. My understanding was if you shared a meal with somebody, they were considered family in that time.
Sure of that. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying that you're wrong, but I'm not sure if it was considered, you were considered family.
Family in the sense of our community of All Saints. We are a family of parishioners.
Well, okay. I understand what you mean. You are like welcome into the community. Yes. But I mean, I was thinking when you said family, I was thinking like,
brother, sister.
Yes, kind of thing. I mean, it might be in terms of in the Lord, but I don't think in terms of in the sense that I thought you were thinking. But yes, if you were welcoming to the community, or you're welcome in our home, you could use the word family, like how you say, you got some friends over, you say your family, yes, that kind of way, not your real family in the sense of that. Yes. yes. But hospitality was extremely important there. And we will get into that next week when we start talking about the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, because, many scholars will tell you hospitality played a part in that, because the people in Sodom and Gomorrah, part of it was they were not hospitable to people at all. So we will talk more about that next week. So here you see, this whole notion of preparation. Although Abraham did not know about these guests coming. We talked about this morning is almost like back in the older days where people just showed up at your house. There were no cell phones to tell you I was coming, and you were in the area, and you will say, forgot my friend Beth lives down that street. Let me go and pop in on her and pay her a visit. And people did that. And yet, I recognize that when I lived in Barbados, they will just pop in on you, and then the first thing your parents will say is, "Oh, what can we get you to drink?" And then the longer you stay, the food get more. You'll get finger food, and then the next thing you know, it getting a little longer. It's time that you should maybe get a real good meal. And I will hear my parents say, "Excuse us a minute," and they will go up there and talk as to what are we going to feed these people, and this kind of thing went on and on. And that is how it was. It was years ago. So again, hospitality, you see, working here. Now it continues, and then you see in verse 9, now they're asking Abraham, "Where's your wife Sarah?" "There in the tent," he said. Then the Lord said, "I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son." And again, you see this whole notion of um, of Abraham being reminded again that they're going to have a child. And this has happened like now, it feels like 10 times to me, but it might only have been 4 or 5 times, but it was repeatedly where the Lord is saying to Abraham, you're going to have a child. And sometimes you wonder, well, did he have to say it so often? Is it because Abraham may not have believed, or Sarah did not believe, or was it not just right time yet, or what was going on? But you see, more than any other place that I could remember, that the Lord kept saying to Abraham, "Don't worry, you're going to get a child. Don't worry." I mean, it was going on for so long that even, I like to speak Beth, but it was going on for so long that even Sarah had to see if he could get a child from Ishmael, kind of thing. From Hagar, and he had Ishmael. Yes, Beth.
So when I read this, and this has kind of been, obviously we've read these verses a long time, but I did not think that Abraham realized that it was the Lord that was there and talking to him, because it said the Lord appeared at the beginning of chapter 18. But then it said Abraham looked up and saw 3 men, like that he didn't necessarily know any of them was the Lord or angels. And that was just who Abraham was. We've talked about that before, where he was the kind of person, when he was looking at this land, like, what land do you want? He was the kind of person to be hospitable, to be giving, kind of like what you said about back in the day, people used to do that. Now someone rings your doorbell at night and it's like, shh. Comedian does a skit on that. It's really funny. We're back in the day. You invite them in, you bring out the Pepperidge Farm cake, you make the good coffee, and now it's like, but to me, it was when the Lord said that to Abraham about about you will have a son. Sarah didn't see the people. She just heard. So I don't think she necessarily knew that was the Lord, because Abraham had just hurried in the tent and said, quick, I've got 3 seahs. I don't know what, the fine flour, and knead it and bakes the bread. She didn't, so she could have, I don't think she really knew until when she laughed, his response was, "Will I really have it?" When she said, then the Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh and say, 'Will I really have a child now that I am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord?'" I mean, to
Mhm.
me, that was her indication that, oh my goodness, this is the guy. That's when, kind of like Eve, when he said, "Why did you lie?" She's like, "I didn't lie." She didn't know, and even Abraham at first didn't know that these were important people, because if they knew that, then I mean, why would it have been special for Abraham? If you know that God is showing up with his angels, anybody's going to make them a good meal and go all out
Mhm.
for those people. But if they just think they're three regular guys, it takes someone special to make a point to get the calf, to make the bread, to treat these people special, because they're just three. That's what makes. I mean, that's how I read it. Whether that's how you're, whether that's what the intent or not.
Yeah, I mean the thing is about it is, and you're onto it, Beth. And when I say this is that I do not I agree with you that I do not believe that Abraham knew that this was the Lord appearing at first. I mean he obviously realized it was afterwards, and as you
Mhm.
realize at the end, he and the Lord had a good little banter there, where they were at each other. Well, Lord, you mean you? How can you do this? How can you how would you kill the righteous with the wicked? That doesn't sound like you, you know. So
Mhm.
he knew, but at the beginning, I agree with you that it was probably he saw these three men um, who I mean, one thing is, um, I think he thought that they were respected men, though. I don't know what would have given him that impression that they were respected men. The fact that he bowed low to them, and he also calls them, if my mind serves me correctly, did he call them my lords or something in some
Yes, he did say
translations?
my Lord.
So I don't think and you see the other thing is about this that you have to look at. I mean, like in verse 3, he said, if I have found favor in your eyes, my Lord, do not pass your servant by. And the Lord there is in a lowercase L as a raised to an uppercase L. So he didn't see them as God, but he probably see them as respected men. So I do agree with you that he declared himself when he made mention about where was it where when after Sarah laughs, he said, right, is anything too hard for the Lord? And then he goes on to say, I will return to you at the appointed time next year, and Sarah will have a son. And therefore he knew that he had to know then, because as soon as he said that, Sarah became afraid, as you said, because now she realized, oh shoot, what have I done? And it's yes. Wait, hold on a minute. You gotta unmute yourself, Susan. And instead of saying, "Well, oh my God, he might have caught me." I mean, I guess she didn't realize that he would know, because she doesn't say it loudly. I mean, she said she laughed to herself as she thought, which is verse 12. So Sarah laughed to herself as she thought, after I am worn out and my master is old, now will I now have this pleasure? Let Susan say what she wants to say before she lost her thought.
Yeah, I have to leave. Sorry.
All right,
This is
Susan.
my last week of double duty here. So anyway,
Oh, okay, good,
but
good, good. So
I have to.
we'll have you back for single duty next week. Good,
Yeah,
good,
and
good.
I get the full thing. I
You,
wanted to get to the saving 1 or 10 people, but I have to leave. So I'll listen to the
all
record.
right, okay.
And,
Have a good night.
well, I didn't want to say your Advent in the trumpet, your Advent writing was very good.
Oh, thank
I,
you.
I got a lot out of that one. So anyway,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you,
Okay, see you
Susan.
next
And
week.
and
Okay.
I'll see you next week, my dear. God bless
Yeah,
you.
thanks. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
No.
Yeah. So you knew. So the fact is, when she did this, and she then realized that the guy know, but because the Lord said to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh and say, will I have a child now that I am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? And he goes on to say that she'll have a child. Well, Sarah becomes afraid. And instead of realizing, oh boy, this is the Lord, he probably, I mean, I would hope she knew that he would know everything that's going on in her heart. Uh, but obviously, and I mean, it's a natural human response. That's what it is, a natural human response. When we are fearful in situations and contexts like these, the first thing to come to do is to lie. Even if we come back and say, you know, I'm sorry, I lied. But the first thing is you're afraid because you know this is the man. And and you may think that you can get away with it because you didn't do it loudly, but you did it internally that you could get away with it. But you're talking about God. You don't get away with it that easy. Yes, Marilyn.
That's what I was going to say. But this is
Yeah.
God. No, none of us are going to get away with it.
You can't get away with it. You can't get away with it. And so you see, it says in verse 15, Sarah was afraid, so she lied and said, I did not laugh. But he said, yes, you did laugh. But the interesting thing, the interesting point, which someone made today was the difference between how God allowed them to get away with their lack of faith, their lack of belief in what was going to happen. Because Abraham himself in chapter 17, he also did something that caused him not to be in that caused him to get away with, I think he laughed as well, or something to that effect in chapter 17. And God allowed him to get away with it. How come God did not allow Zachariah when he went dumb and he went mute, when he did not believe that Elizabeth would have a John the Baptist, and God made sure that he could not speak until the child was born? And it was like, well, why would God do that to him? He didn't do it to the rest, kind of thing. And I mean, that was a really good question. The only thing I could come up with at the time is because he was a priest and he should have known better. Yes, I don't know, because Zechariah was a priest. but you see here with Noah, with Abraham, that he, even although Sarah lied, he didn't punish her or anything. He didn't even rebuke her. In the same way, except to say you did laugh, or he did not rebuke Abraham either when he did earlier on either. So it is interesting, that they were able to get away with it. But again, you got to remember too that Abraham played a very pivotal role in terms of being chosen by God for a particular purpose, and he was a faithful person. It shows you that faithfulness does not mean perfection. He was not a perfect man. But he sought to be a faithful man. He sought to allow God to be his guiding light, and try to live in that way. And it shows you, as I said to the others this morning, it shows you that God is not out there will always, because people think that God is out there ready to always punish us, and he's not. That is, and you will see that play out even when it comes down to the end, which Beth read about. You see Abraham going at challenging God's justice, his whole attitude in terms of, God, are you going to kill righteous people with wicked people? I mean, if you're going to do that, what's the sense of being righteous? You could almost get that coming across from Abraham, and at the end result, Although he bargained God down to 10 people, uh, God still can find 10 people to save the whole place, because the only people that he could find was Lot's family. And Lot's family was 5 people: Lot, his wife, and 3 daughters. And then the wife did not even come out the most faithful, because she turned back. She could not let go of the place. And so it ended up being the 4 of them. But so we have to fight. We have to recognize that in a scenario like this, God is not out there just waiting and ready to punish us. He knows that we have that we are human beings, that we will make mistakes. Not that sometimes we will not be punished for our sins, but at the same time, you are able to ask forgiveness. And once you're contrite, just like the people in Nineveh, they had sinned, they became contrite, God changed his mind. So he does change his mind.
Yeah,
Any
and then
questions
Noah
on-
complained and said to him, like, why
Yes,
did you
Bryce?
change your mind?
Mhm.
Then Noah said, like, why did you change your mind? I'm not too happy with you now.
Oh, you mean Jonah? Jonah did.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
Jonah. Why?
Yeah,
Why would
Jonah
Jonah
did.
say, like, why did you change your mind?
Well, again, that is another human reaction. You know, you send me out here to prophesy a punishment, and now you can change your mind. But yes, I changed my mind because the people changed, and they were serious about it. All right, let's move on. Verse 16, when the men got up to leave, they looked down towards Sodom. And remember now that we're there in Mamre, Sodom was southwest. So they're looking, there's like St. Pete's looking down at us, kind of thing. And Abraham walked along with them to see them on their way. Then the Lord said, "Should I hide from Abraham what I am about to do? And Abraham will surely become a great and powerful nation, and all nations on the earth, and be blessed through them. For I have chosen him so that he will direct his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing what is right and just, so that the Lord will bring about for Abraham what he has promised him." One of the things I will mention to you all, which I forgot to mention earlier, that you're going to see, you see in Genesis variations of the word, of how God's words are, well, not God's words, but the word God is used. If you look at chapter 17, you will see that the word God is used throughout 17. When you come to chapter 18, you see the word the Lord is used throughout chapter 18. It's the same way if you look at Genesis 1 and 2, you see God is used in chapter 1, and then in chapter 2, you see the Lord God is used in chapter 2. And there is that belief that these are different, that the translation, the writing was done by different persons. Do you understand what I'm saying there? You've heard about the Yahwehs and the Elohis and the Deuteronomists and the priestly writers and these kinds of people. And the fact, because God and the Lord God and the Lord have different words. Like one is Yahweh and the other one is Elohim, and that kind of thing. You get what I'm saying? Yes, George.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Okay. You were going to say something, George?
I had a comment on
Mhm.
his bargaining for Sodom and Gomorrah.
Mm-hmm.
Abraham knew that Lot was living down there.
Yes.
So
And I think he was bargaining on behalf of Lot.
that's what I was wondering, if
Oh,
he really
yes.
cared
Oh,
about the
yes.
people or he cared about Lot.
Yes, but he should have brought it down to 5, not 10. Yes, he cared. I mean, I still think he cared about people. I really do. But obviously, his nephew was there and he cared about him and his nephew's family. So obviously, that would have been foremost in his mind as well. Um, uh, or maybe you might be right. That's why he kept bringing it down to so little, because he probably knew many of them there. And even then, they could not find five more, which also begs the question as to, you mean, were there not children in Sodom that were good children? You mean even them were bad? Or was it that they were killed because their parents were bad? All these kinds of questions play into your mind because you're given 10, and the thing about it is, unfortunately, he said at the end, he said at the end to Abraham, he said, what was it? He said in verse 32, then he said, may the Lord not be angry, but let me speak just once more. So he only had one more chance. And that's when he should have brought it down to 5 or 4 or 3. But he said, what if only 10 can be found there? And he answered, for the sake of 10, I will not destroy it. When the Lord has finished speaking with Abraham, he laughed and Abraham returned home. So, I mean, the thing is about it is, I always laugh at that part of verse 33 because we are not sure if the Lord left immediately afterwards, making sure he didn't go lower than 10. Or if it was just, there was more speaking going on, and then he left. We are not sure. But he had said, what? But Abraham said one more time. Yes, Marilyn.
Well, it doesn't say 20 men, 10 men. It says 10 people. And I
know that. Yes.
And I have a footnote that says, perhaps Abraham stopped at 10 because he had been counting while praying. Lot, his wife, possibly 2 sons, at least 2 married daughters and their husbands, and 2 unmarried daughters. And that would be why he was counting to 10.
It's not bad.
Pardon me?
I thought Lot only had 3 daughters. He had more than 3 daughters? Let me see. Wait a minute. Hold on. Let's go down. Let me see what's here. Go ahead a minute. So obviously he had more children then. Hold on.
It says possibly 2 sons, at least 2 married daughters and their husbands. And then there's a scripture notation, and 2 unmarried daughters. See 19 verse 8.
Hold on, let me see.
19:4 and 19:8. I'm sorry, 19:14 and 19:8.
Oh, yes, he did have sons-in-law.
So I think that's why he had gone to 10 and stopped at 10. Because
That is why. Hold on a minute.
because he was counting the family.
But the sons-in-law were too stubborn to listen.
Yes. It's so great that he has so lot right now until the Christ stuff.
He wasn't very
But they
kind to
weren't married.
people.
But you see, they weren't married yet. They had pledged to, but they weren't married definitively yet, though. In verse 14. But his sons-in-law thought he was joking.
Well, in a way, the whole thing is sort of a charade because God knew how many good people were there.
Correct.
He really didn't need to send his angels down to
do
find
anything.
out.
Yeah, that is the other thing too. Is and that's a good point. And I even said to the others this morning as well when that God, where was it that he said it? He said in verse 20, then the Lord said, the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great and their sin is so grievous that I will go down and see if what they have done is as bad as the outcry that has reached me. If not, I will know. And I mean, he knew. God knew. I mean, how could he not know what was what was going on in Sodom and in Gomorrah. He knew that they were bad. He knew their sin was bad, and he knew that, you know. So yeah, I did not realize. You know, you always think about. So he only even left with two daughters. He had two daughters that were not married. But you see, they're presuming that he had three daughters to be married because it doesn't tell you how many other daughters he had. And the other, and in the other state, let me see. And you don't know if those are the same two daughters that these two sons-in-law were supposed to be married to.
Well,
If you understand what I'm saying, because it doesn't, I don't see it
check
showing
verse
you.
8. Check verse 8.
Verse 8.
But you're in the next chapter, right?
Yeah, we are in 19.
So where does it show you that he has three other daughters besides these two?
I don't know. I just read the footnote to you.
Wait a minute, hold on. Let me just look at the thing.
Perhaps Abraham stopped at 10 because he had been counting while praying. Lot, his wife, possibly two sons, see 1912. At least two married daughters and their husbands, see 1914. And two unmarried daughters, see 19, verse 8.
Well, we know she has two daughters who were virgins. We see that, who they were never slept with a man. So we see that is for sure. And what seems to be for sure is that he had these sons, they called them sons-in-law, who had pledged to marry his daughters, which is what happened between Mary and Joseph. They were betrothed, but they were not married, but it was seen in those days as a kind of a marriage that they had already. So obviously this was a similar situation, it looks like. So in verse 14, so Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law who had pledged to marry his daughters. But we don't know if were these daughters the same daughters that are the two that never had any person, or are these other daughters? Hurry and get out of this place because the Lord is about to destroy the city. But his sons-in-law thought he was joking. With the coming of dawn, the angels urged Lot, saying, hurry, take your wife and your two daughters who are here,
with you.
or you will be swept away when the city is punished. Yeah, there's no other talk. And you see, it doesn't tell you even.
I have a footnote for 19, verse 16. Talking about him hesitating, perhaps because of a reluctance to leave his material possessions, his hand and the hands of his wife and his two daughters. The 10 righteous people required to save Sodom had now been reduced to 4. The Lord was merciful to them. Deliverance is due to divine mercy, not to human righteousness. And then it goes on to talking about the raining down of the sulfur and so forth. So
I have to find out because I did not know that Lot had a whole lot of children. But I mean, you're claiming that he had two sons, and I've always heard about Lot's daughters. I've never heard about Lot's sons.
wasn't it son-in-laws?
but you're saying that there's also
yeah.
possibly two
Possibly.
sons.
Possibly two sons.
But you see, I see verse 12 as the two men just asking him if you have any sons-in-laws, daughters, or sons, or anyone else in the city, as if you're just talking, not that you necessarily have these people or that these are members of your family, but just do you have any persons like these around? And
Yeah, and in 14, Lot went and spoke to his sons-in-laws who were pledged to marry his daughters.
Since Pam is not here, I Googled this. She's usually the one that does that. And
Yeah.
it says the Bible text refers to two of Lot's daughters who escaped Sodom with him. However, the text also mentions sons-in-law who were engaged to two other daughters of Lot who remained in the city and were destroyed, leading many interpretations to conclude that Lot had at least 4 daughters in total. So at least 4 daughters he had. But I didn't think it. I mean, the only reference I heard of sons was when the two men asked Lot if he had any sons. It didn't sound like.
Yeah, I've never heard about Lot having any sons.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, I have never heard about Lot having any sons. And even but you see, the thing is, it is ambiguous because it does not tell you that there were 5 daughters, that there were 2 other daughters, additional daughters.
No, it doesn't.
Um,
It could be the
it
same
does
two.
not. It does not tell you that there were 2 additional daughters to go with these sons-in-law. And you just get the impression that is that these sons-in-law were for the daughters. That were there. Remember, betrothal did not mean that you were living together. It did not mean that at all. So for Lot's daughters to be living with these men, I mean, I guess it is possible, but it is not. It doesn't have to be either. I mean, I'm
But
trying to think, did Mary and Joseph live together?
Lot wouldn't have offered his betrothed daughters, right? He offered the 2 daughters that had not. Who
Not with any men.
I don't think even though, I mean, but if 2 daughters
is
were
true.
betrothed, I don't
That
think
is
he would
true.
have offered.
That is true. That is true. That is true. You make a point there.
Well, anyway, that's probably why Abraham was
Why
bargaining.
Abraham stop at 10? So you got the 2 daughters that are married. The 2 daughters to be married is 4. The 2 sons-in-law who are going to be married to them is 6. Lot and his wife is 8.
Well, he was
And
using
then-
multiples of 5. So after 20,
Yes,
he
that's
didn't
what he
say
was doing,
8,
actually.
That's
what he was doing.
25, 40, 30, 20, 10.
Yeah, that is what he was doing.
We talk, excuse me, we talk about the household. Maybe there were men servants or female servants there that were considered part
That
of.
is possible too. That is possible too. And I would have thought that he would have had more than 10 in total in terms of the family and those servants.
But this is after he was captured and drug away, and
Well, that
Abraham
is-
brought
yes.
him back. So he may
That
have
is true.
lost all of
He
his.
probably has lost a lot of that stuff too. A lot of those people. Yes, he could have lost a lot of those people. And the other thing is too, it is interesting is that, with his sons-in-law, the fact that they did not they thought he was joking, obviously, um, as a father-in-law to be, he did not have the same kind of clout or kind of persuasion to get them to come with him, and so to his daughters, the other two daughters, to come with him. Um, you know, it is
Lot,
interesting. It is interesting that the place was so this place was so bad that he could not be, even as a righteous person, kind of like morally persuade them to come with him. That's sad.
he apparently had lost his power of moral persuasion, even among his family members.
Was that there?
Yeah, that's in a
Oh,
footnote on 14,
okay.
19.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about that too. Because I mean, if he's a righteous man, you've given these daughters over these men, but you can't even morally persuade them to come. So you know what your daughter's gonna be living in. Go ahead, George.
So, I mean, God's been talking to Abraham all along, and I
Yes.
guess Lot's been getting some of this stuff secondhand. I don't know why this jumped in my mind, but is Lot circumcised?
Oh, did we not read somewhere?
I mean,
When did,
Abraham did
no,
his
we talked about
household,
Abraham and Ishmael being circumcised in the household. Um, I
but
don't know.
at this point, Lot wouldn't be in his household anymore.
No, he
They had
wasn't.
separated.
They had.
So
They had.
Lot was given special treatment basically just because he was a
Because
friend of
because of
Abraham.
Abraham. Yeah, because of Abraham. Because he was his nephew. Because the whole notion of what chapter was the whole notion of circumcision? It was 17, I think.
Yeah, the last
Yeah,
chapter.
the last chapter.
1723 was when the household of Abraham was circumcised.
Yeah. But Lot was not circumcised at least if he became circumcised, it would have to be afterwards. But he was not circumcised at that point, up to that point. Interesting. Interesting. Interesting.
Cut me off my offspring.
Interesting.
Abraham was placed.
Let me see if there's anything. But as you see going on there between Abraham and God, this whole lot, interceding for Sodom and Gomorrah, mostly Sodom because that's where Lot was. But you see God, Abraham interceding there, and the whole notion of Abraham pleading for God's justice and authority, that he will be, that God will not be this kind of a judge that will not do the right thing. And I mean, obviously, God would have done the right thing whether there were 50 people or 100 people or 1,000 people that were righteous, because he did it for Lot. And he would have done it for the others as well if there were other righteous people there. And obviously, but there were not. And so
I'm
the
not
whole
sure about that. When Jesus was here, he talked about some tower falling, and it happened to the righteous and the unrighteous, and sometimes the righteous just get
Well, yes, that is true. I mean, that is true. I mean, Jesus talks about Jesus talks about the gathering of the wheat and the tares, that you let them grow together. So we know of that. But I mean, when I say that, I meant here. Uh, I mean, when I say that, I mean in the context of what Lot was saying, um, um, that he that that if God wanted the righteous to be save that he could have done it if he wanted to. He could have done it when he wanted to. I mean, it begs the question, and I hear you, George, because it begs the question as to whether or not was God going to blow up the whole place and kill everybody? If Abraham did intercede and ask God about about saving those who are righteous. Um,
Also, Sodom and Gomorrah are two separate places. Did they
they
only
are
visit one?
they are two separate places, but they're close to each. They were supposed to be close to each other.
But it doesn't say that they visited one and then visited the other. They just
Um,
visited. Is that
uh, we know that God spoke about them. Well, we weren't told that we were told they went towards Sodom. Let me see. Hold on. Let me see something.
I realize we're getting into the next chapter.
Yeah, yes. They ended up in Sodom, which is where Lot was. But you know there was nobody in Sodom that was spared. Everybody died. I mean, come on. There weren't no saints going there. Yes, because everybody was not righteous. There was no righteous people. Um, um, Sodom only got spared because of Lot, in a sense. It not got spared, but Lot only got spared because of who he was. That's the only reason. And and as I said, even his wife could not even get spared because her looking back was a sign that um, she could not give up um, um, what she was leaving behind. You know, she too was simply disobedient. Because if you remember, I think it was in verse 17 where the angel said, "Don't look back and don't stop anywhere in the plain." And she looked back. She looked back. Flee to the mountains or you will be swept away. And she looked back. So
All right. Good night.
good night, Bryce. Good night.
Bryce.
Good
See you
night.
on Sunday, you all.
See you on Sunday, buddy. Yeah, so I mean, we'll end here. The whole going backward and forward, and the bargaining and the interceding and all of that that Abraham and God went through. The other word I forgot I was thinking about, which I think is Lord, is Adonai. I think that's the one that is used, Adonai, and it now came to my mind, Adonai. Um. So yes. Any questions? You okay, Beth?
No, okay.
It is interesting. It is rather interesting. It is rather interesting in terms of the bargaining, because some people think, or some people will tell you, oh, you can't bargain with God, and I often have to say to people, I think you can. And there are times in the Bible where it happened, but you also have to be a certain type of person who has a relationship with God who are able to do this. Um, and if you want to bargain with God, if you do not have a relationship with God, but you want to bargain with Him, and and He he more or less welcome your bargaining and even and give you what you wanted, what are you going to give him in return? What are you going to do in your life in return? Because you see, what people fail to realize, especially when it comes to God, is about them wanting what they want from God, but they don't want to give God anything from them. And that is the point. And that is the sad point. Abraham was faithful. He was faithful. He was a man. He was not perfect. He did some wrong things, but he often allowed his life to be directed by God. So in a sense, he had bargaining power because of his faithfulness, and God listened to him, and God even told him, said, "Oh yeah, I'll do what you want." But it is when you do not have that kind of relationship with God, when you don't have that kind of faithfulness to God, when you do not bring your life to a state where He becomes your guiding light, that you have problems, and whether or not, and even though if you even bargain with Him and you get through, what are you going to do after that? And that's the point that people don't get. They think they can do that and then go on doing what they feel like till it's time to bargain. And once they start to bargain, he doesn't give them what they want, then they're upset. They're angry. You're not to be like this. And you can't, that is not how that's not how we're involved in a relationship with God. It doesn't quite work that way. Does that make sense?
I don't really agree with the bargaining with God. I think God does His will. I think it's where Abraham was making his request known to God, and maybe God was kind of testing him. Like, how far are we going to go with this? But bargaining
No,
kind
maybe.
of,
Well, the word bargaining might be the wrong word I'm using,
yeah,
but it is. But is it? But I'm talking about what he was doing. You
yeah,
can do that with God.
yeah, oh
Yeah,
yeah, oh yeah.
bargaining may be the wrong word I'm using. Let me take out that.
Persistence. There's a lot to be said about
Persistent.
persistence.
Yes, you can be persistent with God.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm just using a bad word.
yeah,
That's the wrong word, just a
yeah.
bad word. But that's the point I'm trying to make. You
Mhm.
can be persistent with God, but you have to have still a relationship with God that will bring about some meat to that persistence. That
Mhm.
at least that at least um, you have an opportunity to 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 no, I gotta choose my words correctly. So that you have an opportunity to to be in a position um to have some kind of getting through to God, for lack of lack of a better terminology. I mean, as I always say, I mean, when you look at the Ninevites, I mean, their situation was slightly different, but here is it that God was going to also condemn them, which Sodom and Gomorrah could have done. They knew what God was coming to do. The angels told them, but yet they did nothing about it. Ninevites did. The Ninevites did.
I
And
don't,
from the
where does
well,
it say
no,
the angels told them? They just came
no, he
down
didn't
to
told them. They only
see.
told Lot's people. That is true.
Okay.
Lot's
Okay.
people. Right. But I mean, even like the sons-in-law, they had an opportunity and they refused it. They refused it. They refused it. They did not think that he was serious. They refused it. You know. So and we gotta ask ourselves the question too. I mean, if God was to come now or prophecy and say, change your life, amend your ways and your doings, um, you know, or I'm going to destroy, would we do it? Would people do it? That's the other thing too. You know, I say to people all the time, if Jesus was walking around and had told you all these things, you think that you would change? It all depends. We might because we know about him. Others might think he's a joke. There's people now who don't believe in him. So why would they change if he even walked the earth?
Well, that's no different now than it was 2,000 years ago.
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
And the parable of, the rich man and the poor man, and
Exactly. Yeah.
send me back from the dead so I can warn my brothers.
We have to warn our brothers.
If
No,
if they didn't
no.
listen to the prophets, if they didn't listen to this, they're
They
not
will
going
have
to
the same
listen to you
fate.
either.
They will have the same fate. That is true. They will have the same fate. When and you're talking about a parable where he saw Lazarus in heaven enjoying it after he treated him so badly on earth.
Well, it isn't really that he treated him badly. He just ignored him.
Well, that is treating badly. Somebody's treating them idiot. If you ignore somebody, you've treated them badly as far as I'm concerned. All right, everyone, have a good night. This was interesting. This was wonderful. We'll pick this up next week, Wednesday, okay?
Okay.
All right. Have a good night, everyone. Say hello to
Bye-bye.
Chris, Beth. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, Beth.
Bye.